to get outside the Longbox Patreon users and YouTube subscribers, today is the first in what hopefully will be an ongoing series of Skype calls with AC Canales. Is that your last name?
That is it.
He's a local Colorado artist and fellow older nerd, as I called him. with more, he has a more nerd experience points than I have, so hopefully I'd like to pick his brain on some just cool stuff, D&D stuff, art stuff, comic book culture stuff. He seems to be interested in all the same things we talk about and all the same things I'm interested in, but like I said, just has been around it for a lot longer than I have. So how you doing, AC?
Doing all right, Doyle. I'm 46 this year, so I've got level 46 of being a nerd.
Like 10 years on me. Well, 9.
Came pretty early. Kids figure out pretty early that they're weird and they like stuff that other kids don't care about. And, it's not... It's interesting. It's awesome being alive right now during a time when the stuff I like, other people know what the heck it is. At least some of it.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, take a comic book to school, and kids just thought I was weird.
Oh, dude, same here. I used to like Magic the Gathering and stuff at school, and kids would be like, "What the hell are you doing?" But I was also like on the sports teams. So I had like those groups of friends, but I didn't hang out with them outside of the sporting arena type of thing. So they were always like, "What are you doing? Why you do that stuff?" I just like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to. I read a concept of a Renaissance mat when I was a kid, and it stuck with me because I thought it was a really cool idea. It was. You don't just stick to one thing that you like. You try everything and see how many things you can enjoy, not just what you have an aptitude for, but stuff that's intellectual, stuff that's physical, stuff that's philosophical, stuff that, requires hand-eye coordination. I mean, try it all, because there's like a synergy bonus using some D&D vernacular, nerd vernacular for knowing different things and putting them together. And, I like what someone said a long time ago, that sports is just kind of like jock cosplay. It's as real as D&D. I mean, sure, you can get injured, but, I almost fell out of my chair earlier today. So
yeah,
anything
I LARPed
happen.
Once. I almost got injured doing that.
How did you like that?
A guy jumped out at me with a freaking yard spike.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I decided not to do that again. I was like, it's cool, but it's a little too much for me.
There's something appealing.
Really funny, though. We used to have this... so one of the guys who got me involved in tabletop game... Well, Gabe is the original guy who took me to my first D&D session, but one of our old roommates, Bobby Vanal, used to be our pretty much resident dungeon master for all games. So I lived with him and Jared and Gabe. We had a roommate, Ben, who was like turbo bro. He was like, he would make fun of us for nerd shit. He was a cool friend. We all liked him, but he was constantly ragging on us like for doing nerd shit, and we'd call it like goobers and goblins and shit like that. And one day we actually got him to play World of Warcraft, and he somehow turned into like the biggest Warcraft nerd out of all of us. Playing it constantly, but he somehow included that in like not nerd shit in his mind.
That's not nerdy, that's adjacent.
Yeah, he's like, it's not the same. It's like, it's the same thing. But yeah, so this first episode is just a little bit of an introduction, just kind of hanging out. We are going to talk a little bit about Action Comics, just because the first time I ever met AC, he reminded me of an old Action Comics story from 824 and 825, in case you guys want to look into them. I had to go through the long boxes and pull them out. But it is actually a really cool story, so we want to talk about it a little bit. In case you haven't heard that episode of Thinking Outside Longbox, because that was, how many years ago was that? That was the 1,000th issue, but it was a while, at least 2 years, I think.
Yeah, that was pre-COVID. That was another
COVID
world
wasn't even
back
a thing
then.
yet. We didn't live inside of a movie at that point.
We're just lucky that things didn't turn out well. All right, like nearly 1 million people dead is not anything to be happy about, but there were seriously people thinking this was going to be the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, that this was how it happened, that some
Isn't it like
strain.
Crazy more than that?
Well, that's
globally?
just the United States. Yeah, that's just the United States, and then most of that was, last year or whatever, but prior to getting the vaccine, and it didn't.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, like, you would assume that now that we're vaccinated, it's less lethal because of the vaccine, not immunity, but less. In D&D terms, it gives you a bonus to your save versus death. I'll take that. I'll take the mask, all of that. But it was even though at the beginning, a lot of people were dying and weren't vaccinated, and that wasn't even an option, obviously.
Yeah.
It's because of how big it spread and how virulent it was that now, even with the vaccine, there's still so many people still dying from it because it just got out there. We couldn't control it. We couldn't behave well enough. Like Australia did great. It helps that they're isolated, but it's not like, it wasn't, we didn't make a nationwide effort, really.
No, it did not seem like it. But doesn't it feel like this says like 3 million, possibly more
worldwide
globally or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's right.
But like when you enter my work, there's literally like any place where people gather together, like on the floor, there's literally like 6-foot dividers. In the cafeteria, there's like, the cafeteria tables are sectioned off into 4 parts now by like plastic dividers. There's things on the wall that remind you to stay 6 feet apart from each other. When you first walk in to the facility, there's a giant, probably like 70-inch screen monitor outside that like reads you like things that are like why you should get vaccinated, why you should like not be 6 feet. Like it feels like a propaganda style, even though I know it's for a good reason. It feels like some weird propaganda style like movie thing. And then add on top of that the latest news, just waking up today finding out that Russia started bombing God, I know the country now, it's not like a name.
The Ukraine.
The Ukraine. I wanted to say Kiev, but I was like, that's just their capital.
Right.
But the Ukraine at like 5 a.m. So I was watching that news and how some people are saying that's a very possible start to a World War III scenario. Because you got Putin saying he would retaliate, even upwards of nuclear retaliation against anyone who gets in his way. And I'm like, geez.
He's a deranged despot, and we've known it. And anyone who has thought other than that is only listening to propaganda that supports some ideas. The only people who think he's not crazy are people who benefit from him being crazy in some way or other. But the fact is, he put himself in a position where now he will have to be removed from power, because if he tries to go back to normal after this, after starting things like this, we know that he'll retaliate to any European countries that armed the Ukraine. He's going to either jack the price on oil or, cut the pipeline to their country and, starve them out a little bit, see how their economy likes it. And everybody knows that he's such a punitive piece of garbage that if his ego is hurt, he will let other people suffer for it. So you can't let him stay in power after this. You have to finish the job. Or else Europe is going to suffer, and then it's going to be worse. And like you said, I mean, a World War III scenario seems like, oh, well, that's way over there. Yeah, but those are our allies. Yeah. These are people that we've promised to protect. These are people that, our civilizations in some cases came from in Europe. Not just the Ukraine is impacted by this or will be impacted by this. They're getting the first ugliness of it. And I saw that they're soldiers shooting rockets into apartment buildings. That's not a military strategic target. That's not something that helps your cause. I mean, that's just being a horrible war criming human being. And there's got to be a better word for it than that. But
I mean, I definitely think what he's doing is a base for being charged as a war criminal once they're moving for office. Like, if that's a possibility. I know a lot of his own people were against the action and rioting before that was shut down.
Some of his soldiers surrendered. Some of them just went across and were like, we surrender. We don't want to do this. So,
I heard that Ukraine was actually doing a lot better than people expected as far as the fighting goes.
Well, they are armed by us and all their European allies, even if we're not there yet physically. We're there in spirit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've shot down planes.
I do feel like at some point there probably will be some kind of military entrance from us or other European countries. Like, I don't see how you couldn't. Because eventually, I mean, Russia's just too big. Like, they will take over the Ukraine. Like, if his mind's really set on it and we're really not going to stop him, like, I don't see how he's not going to accomplish that goal.
He's a despot and a dictator, and even though he wins his elections with like 98% approval voting for him every time, and that's not because the country is that happy with him. The country is suffering. I mean, in a lot of ways, kind of like India, as far as the economic disparity between the haves and the have-nots. There, you're either one of the people that's on Putin's good side and is allowed to succeed and do well, or you're one of the other people being kept poor enough that you have to tolerate whatever they do to you just to survive. It's not because people claim, oh, well, after Crimea, they took a vote and those people said that, they felt better off after he annexed them back. And it's like, do you really trust that after we know the other ones have international attention for how fraudulent they are, and not like other claims made, but actually fraudulent. Man, we're gonna get some heat on this this discussion. There's definitely going to be some people that disagree with any of this, but
you think so?
That's okay.
I mean, like, if you don't live in Russia, I haven't found too many people on his side.
You'd be surprised. We certainly got
a lot
some
of like the Trump. I mean, like, I'm not attacking Trump, not my favorite president, but I guess like a lot of Trump supporters were Putin supporters as well. Like back when Trump was like all buddy with him, which makes me wonder how Trump would handle this whole situation. Like I think Biden had, even though like I text you, he didn't come across sounding super great because he doesn't speak that well, but I agree wholeheartedly with sanctioning and cutting off all access to American bank and to all their companies and whatnot, and just choking them out financially. Because I think in this day and age, to be a power the size that they are, you need global backing, technologically, financially. Like, your businesses have to be able to do business outside of your country to succeed on a large scale. So,
yeah, and we've kind of entrenched ourselves in everyone else's economy. I mean, Russia and China a couple of years ago were talking about switching over to their currency and forcing people who buy oil from them to use their currency. Because right now, everyone uses American dollars to buy oil.
Yeah.
So that's something they don't like, understandably, but it also gives us leverage. I mean, they accepted this, the Saudi country. I mean, Saudi and the other Arab countries also use American dollars. Like, the $100 bill used to be the 20. The $100 bill is like the most ubiquitous currency in the world because so much of it gets transferred for oil at this point. Yeah. The elegant solution would be to choke them out financially to make them behave better. But that only works with rational people who think long term. So when you run into someone who's not like that, it doesn't. Rational solutions don't always work.
That's what worries me, is that, like, that he does have nuclear capabilities, and I don't think he's the same individual.
No, it's clear that he's not.
I don't think he would nuke Ukraine, but I don't see why he wouldn't just pop one off at us for screwing with his money or another European country. Like,
well, the justifications he makes now are so paper thin, but they're based on that. You know, he's saying like, well, the Ukraine would benefit from us taking them over, and it's like, no, you would benefit from them because you need their infrastructure, their stability, all of that population, all those buyers and sellers. There are a lot of economic reasons for it, but part of it, people hypothesize, is that he kind of thinks he's a czar and needs to expand Russia like the Romanovs. And especially you got to start by taking back what was once Russia's if you have that mindset. Yeah. And anyone who interferes with that is interfering with his, I think it was my wife that told me today that czar actually comes from the root of Caesar.
Yeah.
As far as like what that's supposed to represent. And, you know, if you think you rule the world, anyone who disagrees with you is a misbehaving child and you need to punish them. So, I mean,
yeah, it's not a good look.
No. But hopefully, you know, using what they have, Ukraine will be able to stomp them down fast enough that others don't have to get involved, because likelihood is if others get involved, kind of like World War II, was it World War One that had the domino effect of all the treaties where people had to help each other if they got into a problem and it dragged everyone in. Yeah, that was one. Not exactly that, because that was made out of alliances. I think if this does lead to World War III, it'll lead to oppositions and antagonists. And if people see like, oh, well, America is now facing one enemy, why not make it 2 or 3 with other deranged people that shouldn't have nukes and do? And of course, the possibility that South Korea could get hit with a nuke when North Korea tries to hit us because they can't seem to fire a nuke further than the sea.
Which seems likely.
Yeah, dude, their best shot is to like take it to the DMZ and tip it over if they want to attack a country with accuracy.
What I don't understand is just like, I mean, I know they're not rational individuals like Putin and whatnot, but you would think just historically, like whenever anybody gets out of line like this and it's a bullshit reason, it hasn't historically gone well for them. It's like eventually you get shut down and then all your toys get taken away. You get set back 50, 60 years financially and your people suffer for it. Like I would just, if you want to be a dictating asshole in your own country, I mean, that sucks for the people in your country, and I don't think that's cool either, but at least that's your thing that you get to do, I guess. But the second you start taking it outward, I mean, it's not usually very good. It doesn't usually work out.
No, and we've shown our willingness to let dictators do whatever they want with their own people as long as they play ball with us. There's a long history of that. But I mean, when Hitler took Poland and the world looked at it and went, we're not sure what to do. And then he was like, all right, dumbasses, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
Putin took Crimea and we all watched and let it happen. And so here he goes again. So, you know, things like this have to be, it's too late to nip it in the bud, but it's got to be, this needs to be uprooted at this point.
Yeah, I would be shocked if the other global powers let it go farther than this, minus like China, who just cares about dollar bills, I think, honestly.
Yeah, they can afford to. They can buy all of our bonds, they can buy all of our debt, they can basically treat their population, which is massive, as slave labor with motivated efficiency to get as much wealth as they can, and eventually they can buy everybody. I was kind of thinking about this the other day. The United States our diplomacy over the last, I don't know, since World War II has been, we have the biggest guns. so don't mess with us. I mean, it's it has worked so far because no one, barring incidents, barring individual actions, no country has like attacked us since Pearl Harbor. 9/11, whether you think it was a country or not, or the fact that it was, mostly Saudis from an ally of ours, it wasn't an official country trying to start shit with us because nobody thinks they can win right now. And they can't. I mean, we we turn our economy into a bullet manufacturing machine.
Yeah.
So we use that. That's our deterrent.
Yeah. I was just wondering, that's only obviously if everyone fights on a fair playing field where we decide nuclear weapons aren't a thing, that they exist, but we're not going to use them. Our military does dwarf every other military and most combined militaries in the world as far as its capabilities and its ability to mobilize globally. But like we said before, what stops an irrational human being from just upping that playing field to the nuclear level, and then that doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah. God, I was watching The Watchmen the other night while I was drawing, and I saw, that image of them moving the doomsday clock with the United States Russia thing, and someone today sent me a Telegram message with a picture of the doomsday clock again being moved 5 minutes closer to midnight or whatever, and it's like we seem to like these ominous symbols as a species. In fact, all of our learning is more symbolic than anything else. The things that truly stick with you, you can memorize equations, you can memorize facts, but the things that, and that, like, in D&D terms, that would increase your intellect, your intelligence. But I think the only way to get wisdom is through experience, and the only way to transfer an experience is with a story. And, we have fairy tales and grim tales and, all kinds of things, legends in Latin culture and in every culture, and they all pass on certain wisdom that help people to survive whatever they're going through. But it's the symbols that they picked. Like, out of all human history, a lot of stories have died. A lot of things have been told to one person and never made it past that because they didn't resonate. The things that do resonate that are still around are the ones that somewhere hit us in the subconscious. And the doomsday clock, we think we're the only species on the planet that can kind of contemplate our own death in the future, that can contemplate ourselves in the future. If an animal gets its foot stuck in a bear trap, obviously that's going to be a very real scenario. But most creatures rely on instinct to try to keep them doing the thing that keeps them alive. Yeah. There are fish that have nerves close to their skin, so that when they go through seaweed, it feels good. And the ones that have that basically stay where they're hidden from predators. So, a lot of these things like keep us where we are and give us an understanding beyond just what's right in front of us. So I think the doomsday clock is a very powerful metaphor, even if it does feel kind of silly and cheesy now. We still don't give it up.
Yeah. No, it still has relevance for sure. Hopefully it's not actually going through right now, but I guess that's how we eliminate ourselves. That's how we eliminate ourselves.
Did you ever
right
see...
on the cusp of space exploration as well?
Oh, man. Yeah. If we're dumb enough to screw everything up before we can get off this planet and really see what's out there. But did you ever watch The Day the Earth Stood Still?
Yeah. The original?
I've only seen the new one.
I've seen them both. But.
Okay, so the idea in that humanity seems to perform best under pressure when you see the doomsday clock about to hit midnight, when you're afraid that the end is near, and all the dumb excuses you've given yourself to not do the things you needed to do up to this point, you will actually consider getting past that in a crisis. I think that's why we like the doomsday clock, because we like feeling near a crisis, because part of us actually is motivated to do something about that. I just hope we do.
That's true. Yeah, we're not like, unfortunately, we're not Hobbit-like. We don't just enjoy Shire living.
Yeah, that'd be pretty ideal. Tolkien certainly presented that as ideal, and I like that idea. Eat your radishes and go and have a bunch of Hobbit babies and eat your 7 different kinds of cheese and butter and sing about them. Like, pretty good life.
That's pretty much... I think that's what I would do, give him money. I think I'd buy some land and put a little house on it and make sure it wasn't very close to anybody else's land. I'm the type of person that I enjoy the relationships with people that I enjoy in those interactions, but outside of that, I'm like, I could not have the rest of the human population. I mean, you're all fine. We love you all, but don't want to interact with you on a day-to-day basis.
Like, let's keep that 6 foot thing going, and just
let's do 6,000 feet, perhaps.
Yeah, there is something.
You don't want to be in that public center when the zombie apocalypse does happen.
No, you want to have time to figure it out and formulate a response and get into your underground bunker that used to be a missile silo.
Yep. I've already got my plan. I'm just going pharmacy to pharmacy and then becoming the drug overlord.
You want antibiotics?
I need some cookies.
Dude, that's already where our society is. Yeah. When we can jack the price up on EpiPens hundreds of percent, when, that's a whole other problem. Let's leave that one for next time.
I don't even carry one with me anymore because they're like so ridiculous, and I probably should.
What are they, like $300 now? $400?
I think they're more than that. I heard like $700 at one point.
Wow.
Which I might be wrong, but that's what I was hearing. I was like, because I am definitely allergic to bees.
Oh no.
I am allergic to cats. Like, not crazy, like, but if I'm around them for too long without like taking like allergy medicines ahead of time, like it definitely starts affecting my breathing. I can feel my throat like closing up. And bananas seem to do me in as well. So
bananas? That's a new one. I hadn't heard about that one.
It's not like, I don't think it's on the same level, but every time I've taken, like I take out like a bite, because I like the way bananas taste. Like I like bananas. Like every time I have like about half a banana, I can feel my throat starting to like pressure and itching, and like it's not good. So there's something in there I'm allergic to.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it could be something in there. It could be the pesticides that are used.
I'm not sure,
but either way,
I know when they did that scratch test on me to figure out what I was allergic to when I was a kid, the doctor's like, well, you're allergic to basically everything outside and any kind of animal with dander. I was like, sweet. Everything.
You can have a fish.
Yeah. You can have fish. I prefer you only eat meat products.
Wow. Yeah, that's a rough way to go through things. But I can see why you'd hit a pharmacy, though.
Yeah. I have asthma, too. I would just be like, I feel like those are the drugs that everybody would need. They like need inhalers, you need
EpiPens,
diabetes, all that stuff.
Insulin.
It's like, why is insulin expensive too? It's like, from my understanding, it's like the easiest thing in the world to make, but like it's expensive. So
it is, and it would be cheap to make, which is why some people are now making generics, because there's no patent on it, so anyone can make it. What happens is the pharmaceutical companies make their proprietary blend of insulin with whatever things they include in there to make it, Merck insulin or whatever the hell. And so they only make their brand and they jack it to the moon. And so I used to sell auto and home insurance a while ago. And one of the jokes my trainer told me was that insurance is the one kind of industry that works opposite of everything else, or it did back then before everyone else caught on. Before, if you wanted to buy, a car, and you could talk to a dealer and be like, hey, someone over here has one for $500 less. Do you want to match that and get my business? And if not, that's fine. I'll just leave. And they would match it. Insurance is like, oh, someone else is charging $500 less. We'll call them and let them know to raise their price to what we have. And now you're screwed because no one else is making this. It's not hard to make. It's not expensive to make. It's just you and I don't have a lab at home to do this. And the ones that do don't want to give it away for cheap. But I think the guy from Shark Tank, Cuban, he was talking about starting a company that just sells generics of things that are patent free and will only be like a certain percentage over cost. And I think if he gets that off the ground, it's going to be pretty game changing.
I don't see how it couldn't be. I mean, like, I don't even see how you couldn't become an Uber millionaire from doing that. To me, it's just like, I don't love government like control on a lot of things, but certain things I think they should control. And that's like things like medication. And I don't know what the cutoff would be. I'm fine with it being billions of dollars, but I do think there should be a cutoff if you own a business between how much more money you make than your lowest paid employee, because you did create the business. You do deserve the income and the revenue, I think. But there's a point at which, like, your employees also should be able to live normally if they work for you for full time. Yeah. And I don't care if that's like McDonald's or whatever. Like, and I know that's like a weird thing that people hate, and they're like, you want McDonald's employees to make as much as teachers? And I was like, no, I want teachers to make way more money than teachers make, and McDonald's employees to make enough money to rent an apartment. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and be able to eat the food that they sell.
Yeah. I used to, one of my old roommates, Tyson, used to work at McDonald's, and the dude would get like $400 paychecks, working like 40 some hours a week. And I'm like, what is this? I was like, I make that in 2 days.
Okay. So the other thing about that is the wear and tear on your body at McDonald's is different from the wear and tear on your body being a clerk or a data entry person somewhere. So you're making less. You're going to have more health issues because the only food you can buy is from McDonald's, and we can discuss, debate the quality of that later, but pretty sure it's not farm to table. That's not the McDonald's brand. So little by little, you are falling apart to make not enough money to pay for what you need to keep yourself in good repair. You're going to eventually get heart disease or type 2 diabetes, or,
and they don't even have insurance.
No, they'll hire people to work 37.5 hours a week so that they don't have to give insurance. Same as Walmart. That's the other thing. And then that becomes... I
thought he was working over 40 hours and still not getting insurance.
Was he not considered full-time? And that's how they're like... Because if you give people...
I know he was hired for what you say as like a 37-hour employee. But I know that the McDonald's he was working at was like constantly having employment issues, and he was constantly working like 40 to 50 hours, like for the entire year that he worked there that I knew.
I think you can still be considered a part-time employee and work full-time hours if you're a part-time employee, and they occasionally, whatever that means, you go over your amount of time because of store needs or whatever. But if they don't label you as a full-time employee, then they don't have to give you the benefits of a full-time employee.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of things I'm like, the government strangles that kind of shit. Because like, even at like my job, right? Like I know Colorado was given a financial aid to cover people who are out of work with COVID from their employer. And even when I asked my employer, if I get COVID, you're going to pay it, right? Like it doesn't come out of like my sick pay or anything like that. It gets an additional thing. Yeah. And then I got COVID, and they just took every sick day that I had, all the amount of sick pay that I had, And I brought it up multiple times, and they're like, "Well, we were wrong. That's what it is, actually." I was like, "That's not true. Like, I know for a fact it's not. I literally watched the news this morning, and it told me that that's not how this works." They're like, "That's how it works." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" And you can't even have a conversation with these HR people because literally, I would be like, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" And they were like, "Well, you chose to work." And I was like, "No, I didn't choose. I mean, I did choose to work here because this is the place where I pay my bills, but I can't." Like not choose to work here the moment I get COVID and work somewhere else. Like that's not how that works. I was like,
right. It takes days. It takes a certain amount of time before anyone even gives you benefits for a full-time job. You know, you have to you have to be vested somewhat or have a time period to prove that you're going to be a loyal employee and they're not just wasting money on you. But yeah, I kind of wonder if there's maybe someone you should talk to about legal recourse on that. At least find out, you know, because there might not be. And, you know, no one likes the idea of having an extremely litigious society, but that's also why the ability to sue someone exists is for stuff like this. If it is indeed like they screwed something up, then it needs to be taken care of. But I want to go back to your McDonald's thing for a second. People... And this is a really kind of gross way of thinking about it because Facebook is not how the world is. But unfortunately, I'm on Facebook every now and then because I sell art and I need to have a social media presence. And when I get bored, I look on there and I see stuff where people complain about, oh, folks are just lazy and don't want to work. No shit. No one wants to work. No one wants to go, unless it's your dream, unless it's your vocation. No one wants to go and turn a crank for 8 hours a day. No one wants to go and sweep and mop someone else's bodily fluids for 8 hours a day. No one wants to go and, you know, do all the things that break down your body or your soul or your spirit. We do these things because we have to, because that's how the system is set up. Like, as a guy who grew up on Star Trek, fuck, man, the ability to, like, get your food and a place to live every day, and all you have to worry about is how can I be the best version of myself and add to society with that. You know,
utopian, the utopian setup.
People seem to forget, like, when we started getting robots or automated things they're supposed to make our life easier. So you have more, you know, so people don't have to work as much and they have more time to pursue intellectual and philosophical things and be more like the Greeks, you know, whatever. But you think about like our automated tellers at Walmart or at the bank or at your automated touchscreen order system at McDonald's. They're not like making anyone's lives easier. Those things are a problem most of the time, and the ones that they're supposed to make the lives easier for, they're just job eliminating them. Yeah. If you're a McDonald's employee and now they don't need you to do, they need 3 employees instead of 20. That's great for McDonald's, but without, you know, a social safety net for the people that are now unemployed. And it's like, well, just go get some other shit job, or why don't you get a better job? Okay, sure, fine, but how are you going to eat in the meantime? How are you going to keep your rent paid in the meantime? Most Americans are thousands of dollars in debt on average. Like, our whole economy is based on this country being underwater financially. So if we want this utopia, if we want the ability to go and like, well, I'm an artist, I want to do art. That's one thing. Maybe maybe there are other things I want to do. Maybe there are other ways that I can contribute to humanity. But until we make it so that you're not penalized for trying something different and for trying something that's, you know, more meaningful perhaps than scrubbing floors, which, you know, I've done, many of us have done, and it's like, as part of working at a fast food place, you know, my first job, I made like, this is going to sound like old guy talk, I made like $4.25 an hour. And I negotiated a raise when I threatened to leave to go to the pizza place next door. And I got another quarter an hour, and I thought that was a big deal. And that's great because I lived with my parents and I had my needs taken care of. And so I could take that money and I could save up for school and I could save up for whatever, a trip or whatever I needed. And the economy has changed, not just since then, since long before then. And money is being extracted. Efficiency has been prioritized. And I get it. Like you don't want to hire people to come and like take naps all day, but there's a happy medium between, cracking the whip on people if they blink and people just getting a paycheck for walking in, taking a nap and leaving. Like we can find a space in between.
For sure. I don't know how you get to that point, but I mean, I would think it would be easier than it is, but it doesn't seem to be. Too many people with too much money controlling too many interests, I think.
Yeah, and then they advertise the fact that it makes you immoral and weak and a drain on society if you don't want to take unpleasant jobs that they themselves would never do. Because maybe you have back issues and doing manual labor, even though you didn't have an opportunity in an education, that's all you get, and you're stuck. And yeah, look, I know, man, life's not fair, but there's also a happy medium between the law of the jungle, every man for himself, and carrying everybody on your back without anyone having to do any work. There's also a happy medium there.
Well, yeah, I think we definitely don't all agree because there are lots of people who don't agree with it, but I think those people are fairly hypocritical, or at least have never really been put in those positions. Like most people I know that don't agree with the position we've been talking about come from decent means. I never really been put in that position. I remember I had a conversation with, we'll call him Brad. His name's not Brad. A guy I went to school with at CU Boulder. And he was pissed because there was some news story about how like a Hispanic woman getting a non-citizen, she had a baby and then like her bills getting paid for because she's not a citizen. Because she had just come across the border, she had snuck across and had the baby on American soil. And he was mad about that because he was like, well, why should we have to pay for insurance and all this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I mean, I see your point, but I was like, but her point is she was living in like a drug overlord infested area where she was constantly in fear for her life and trudged across the desert on foot with nothing to come into a country that might accept her, where she could like live without the fear of being killed over things that have nothing to do with her. And the only reason why she couldn't do that is because there's an invisible line that doesn't make any sense really between our two countries. So to me, it's just like, I don't really get like, whenever something like is humanitarian to me, it's just like, to me, there should just be an obvious, like, okay, we'll figure it out. Because we figure out how to make, the newest and best guns and airplanes and buildings and, everybody seems to be doing, in this country, people are doing a lot better than most other countries. But like we bitch about like someone who needs to go to the hospital. I mean, it's like, if you can prove to me that's where my taxes are going, you can raise my taxes. I don't care. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the fact that like I think a lot of my taxes go to bullshit areas. Is the only reason I'm annoyed by that. But if you want to take my money to pay for people that need help, and I know some people abuse the system, okay. There's people abusing the system on the other end too. So it's just I'm not that worried about that.
It happens at every level. It happens at the bottom of the financial ladder and at the top of the financial ladder. Golden parachutes, man. You can fail and still leave your job a millionaire and have the ability to get that same job somewhere else. So I volunteer with this group that makes sandwiches for Denver's homeless, and they take them to Civic Center Park every day. Well, they did prior to the pandemic. Things have been off the last 2 years, but occasionally you get people that say, well, how are you solving the real problem? Or, if you give that guy $5, he's just going to spend it on beer, right? Yeah, you'd spend it on beer. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. I mean, I don't drink, but like, people are going to flip their money away. And if someone gets $5 and they spend $1 of it on a hamburger and the rest on, whatever, something that's not good for them, I made the choice to give them something, and it's up to them to decide what to do with it, because my $5 is not going to lift somebody out of poverty. My $5 is not going to, if he spends it properly, get him out of whatever he's dealing with right now, the mental issues, the physical issues, the trauma that has made it such that a person cannot sustain what we consider a pretty standard lifestyle.
Yeah.
Things have to be way off to get to that point. And my $5 is, it's an aspirin. It's a salve. It's a Band-Aid, but I can afford to give somebody a Band-Aid. And if I see that they're hurting, I'll try to do that.
Yeah.
But,
well, and we know from research that most, at least homeless people is an example, right? We know that most homeless people have some kind of either like hormonal or mental imbalance, something like PTSD or schizophrenia or depression or something like that. That's not being treated correctly because they're obviously homeless and without the money or the insurance to afford medication or therapy for such issues. So it's just like, I don't understand how people can look at those people and then justify going like, well, why would you help them? Like, well, why wouldn't you help them? Like, you could just as easily be them. Occurring with different circumstance. Like, it's not your average, normal, everyday Joe who doesn't have any depression issues or, hormonal issues or hasn't seen the, wartime tragedies or whatever. That needs that help. That's why you're a normal functioning person in society or whatever, being able to afford your paycheck and have your health insurance and have your extra $5, like you said, that you're probably going to spend at Starbucks anyway or whatever, or some crap that you don't need. I have a monthly movie theater thing that I get, and it's completely unnecessary to go see movies. So it's like, why can't that person have a beer or whatever? It's the same thing. I've never cared either. It's like, if I see someone who I think I can help and I can help them in the moment and they abuse that, well, I probably would have abused it too. Whatever.
Yeah. And if they've gotten to that point, anything that switches their pain off for a second or their discomfort or their, what they're dealing with, and it gives them something else for a minute. Like, I know, like, is it better to solve the problem at the macro level and, reduce homelessness and poverty and get more people helping with the mental health crisis in the world, not just the country, everywhere? And as for, I'm going to address this to people who are like, well, we didn't have all this crap when I was young. No, it was all there, you motherfuckers. It was all there.
Yeah.
You just shamed people into being silent about it and having miserable fucking lives or killing themselves or their spouses or their kids because it was considered less than acceptable to have a problem. Yeah. We all have fucking problems. So, we can have a little bit more grace with each other about that and try to make the whole thing better. But since I don't have millions of dollars at my disposal, I have my vote and I've got, whatever changes in my pocket on a given day. And I've got the ability to go make sandwiches that other people can deliver because it's during my work day and across town. But, we can do something. And if everybody, it doesn't even take most people to help. If a small minority of people that is motivated can make a big difference in the world. And I know because I've seen it.
Since this will be on YouTube, like the YouTuber Mr. Beast. I mean, I don't know if you know him at all. Mm-mm. He's become hugely successful essentially by giving away pretty much all the money that he makes on YouTube. So his average YouTube video will be him like he did one where he he ordered a Domino's pizza, and the Domino's guy came, and he knew the Domino's guy from some way or whatever. Or no, he didn't know ahead of time, actually. But he had him deliver it to this house, and he told the Domino's guy, hey, I bought this house for my friend who's down and out. We're going to go buy all this furniture and stack it up and make it a house for him tomorrow. If you could help, I'll give you $2,000, which most delivery people probably need that money because they're not working at the greatest job. So, of course, the guy agrees. And it turns out the guy actually really needed a helping hand. But once he went around, the guy was like, he's like, do you like this couch? He's like, yeah, I like the couch. Oh, cool. Like that TV? Yeah, I like the And at the end, he was like, well, I can't pay you. Sorry, but this house is actually for you. It's not for my friend. And so he had the guy pick out all his own stuff and, like, you know, design his own house essentially without letting him know. Or he gives people cars or whatever. He's done much more than that, too. He started up a food bank. It's becoming one of the biggest food banks in America. It's like supplying other food banks. Like, he's just giving away all of his capital, and that's how he's becoming this huge YouTube star. You know what I mean? And he does have, like, dumb ones, too, where he's, like, last person to take their hands off this $1 million that's to keep it. It's just, like, stupid crap like that. But that's just one person who started out with, like, no followers, you know, who just randomly got a couple people to listen to him and then got one company to give him $10,000. Or, I think his first big video, a company offered him a $5,000 sponsorship. And he called them back and said, why don't you just make it 10 and I'll just give it to a homeless person and that'll be the video. And they were like, no, you won't. He was like, yeah, I will. And he was like, no, you won't. They're like, yeah, that's what I'll do. And then they were like, all right, fine. We'll give you the $10,000. And he just walks up to a homeless guy in that video. He's like, here you go. $10,000. And then he blew up after that. So, yeah, that's one person making a difference. I mean, even I think people don't fully grasp how hard of a problem it is to solve at the macro level as well. Like there becomes like infrastructure issues and like stuff when you're trying to do crazy crap like that. I think like people were giving Elon Musk shit about, you know, his taxes. He pays like $5 billion in taxes and who cares? And they were like, for this much money, you could solve the world's hunger issues. And the next day on Twitter, he was like, if you can put a plan on my desk on how to solve the world's hunger issues for this much money, I'll write the check today. And then everybody shut up and nobody gave him anything. And he's like, that's what I thought. I'm going to keep making spaceships.
I mean, are we not blessed enough on this planet with enough resources and enough people and enough intellect that we could do both? That we could find a way to help each other and shoot cars into space and, you know, get us out into the universe. You know, the macro level, the problem is, like, it's still people involved, and you're still dealing with people that have, you know, mental or hormonal or just health issues. I mean, a large chunk of homeless people are vets. You know, what happened to support the troops? You're going to look down on these guys because he's had a rough time and he couldn't put things back together when he came back.
Support the troops unless he's homeless, and then screw that troop.
Yeah, it seems to be the actual thing. Oh, well, you know, if I want to do it, then I'll do it, but I don't want the government telling me to do it. All right, what have you done? Maybe you need maybe you need someone telling you to do it. Maybe you need to you know, the government tells us not to park in certain places. The government, you know, tells me when my taxes are due. The government tells me all kinds of shit. Where am I going to draw the line if the government actually says, hey, help your fellow man? That'd be an amazing thing.
That's why I never understood the, like, we'll talk about this for a little bit more, and then we'll jump to comics. Our first episode turned out to be quite serious, but that's why I don't really understand the whole like vaccine issue. I'm like, I think it's pretty evident, and to me, it's like I don't believe. I think in like the 20s to like the 50s, sure, you could have maybe a global conspiracy, because you could just kill anybody who gets out of line. I don't think you can do that today. I really don't. There's too many moving cogs. You're really going to tell me that COVID is some like randomly made thing on purpose, and that the vaccine is also just some stupid shit that doesn't matter, and all of the global economies and doctors all over the place are just full of shit. I don't think that's fucking true. And if you don't want to get it, okay, whatever. I think you're stupid. But I do not understand the people out there who are like, how dare you make me get a vaccine? I was like, you already have to get like 16 vaccines before you even start school. I was like, what makes this one any different? What's the difference?
It's not tested. It's not FDA approved. A month ago or a couple months ago became FDA approved. Are you cool with it now? Well, no. Yeah. Okay, right. See, that's not the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is there's a idea that to be a tough guy, you have to reject common sense and anything that helps you or someone else. That only doing things the hardest, dumbest way is the only way to respect someone as a salt of the earth, real man. And that just shocks me that has gotten as far as it has.
Incredibly bizarre. Even to the point where people are like, look at all these politicians that are now on the boards of all these like things making tons of money. And I was like, dude, I would be surprised if that wasn't happening. If that wasn't happening, I would be more on board with this being some kind of weird conspiracy. Like if nobody was making any money from it, if it was all of a sudden just like universally free, I'd be like, some thumbs up with this. They're sterilizing us.
Dude, our tax money does not go for $1 million a year paychecks for these guys. That money is coming from somewhere else. That money is coming from people that they're helping out, all of those that they're writing the laws just for them to make sure that they can do rotten stuff that has no consequences until enough people die from it or enough money is lost that someone else benefits from changing it.
Yeah,
we've taken the idea of too big to fail, and we've pushed it into everything. I mean, if you ever have kids, if I ever have kids, our grandkids will still be paying for the freaking bailouts to the auto industry, to the banks. That the idea was, oh well, if we do this, they won't let go of people. You know, people will still have their jobs if we give the banks money to keep their businesses running. What happened? Yeah. They used that money to buy other banks. And still fired people anyway because they were like, you want your job, right? Well, you're going to have to be 10 times more efficient or we don't need you.
Yeah.
So
I wish my company worked somewhat like that. Like, you just had to be efficient or we'll fire you. That would be nice.
Again, happy medium. Like,
yeah. There's not a happy medium where I work. Like, literally, there are 2 other people who do my job. And I don't know what those guys do because when I get in the next day, it seems to be right where I left it.
That's depressing.
Yeah, it's not my funnest thing. I'm trying to figure out other ways of being, but oh well. For now, it is what it is. I sell the meat products.
Hey, we got to put food on the table and pay the mortgage or the rent or whatever. So, in the meantime.